Hello, social media addiction. According to Newport Academy's Director of Clinical Outreach, the impact of social media on developing teens' bodies and minds can be huge. I was born in the era of modern technology, so I have witnessed technology improve drastically firsthand. I have never in my life had a moment where I did not have access to the internet despite financial stability. According to the Addiction Center, psychologists estimate that 5 to 10% of Americans meet the criteria for social media addiction today. However, social media addiction is classified as a behavioral addiction, in which the victim spends a large amount of time on social media to the point that it affects the person's social life. In this presentation, I will teach you about social media addiction, which is also known as internet addiction. You will learn about social media addiction and how it affects its victims, the symptoms of social media addiction, and preemptive measures against it. Um, how will social media affect its victims? Social media addiction contracted at a very young age can affect a person's social skills. In other words, the child can have a hard time connecting with other people. It doesn't matter who the person is, it could even be a close family member, and this person will have difficulty connecting with them in an emotional level. According to an article titled Social Media Addiction, Its Impact, Mediation, and Intervention, prolonged exposure to social media, such as Facebook, is positively associated with mental health problems such as stress, anxiety, depression, and negatively associated with long-term well-being. In other words, it can also affect a person's emotional state and cause severe disorders. It it itself is an addiction, but it can also cause other mental health issues and disorders, as I've previously stated, such as stress, anxiety, and depression. This addiction also holds physical effects on the person. It can affect the part of the brain that is known as the reward area, where it can influence a person's decisions and how they feel things. It's the person's sensations. What are the symptoms of social media addiction? According to Addiction Center, you can determine if someone you know or close to you has social media addiction when you answer these questions. Does he or she use social media a lot? Does he or she feel irritated when not using social media? Does he or she use social media as an escape from personal problems? Does he or she use social media more and more increasingly? Does he or she try to reduce their use of social media but continuously fail? Does he or she use social media so much to the point that it impacts his or her job or studies? If the majority of these questions are answered positively, then it is most likely this person has social media addiction. The best course of action to help someone with social media addiction is to consult a therapist, or in this case, a specialist in the area. It could be a teacher, a counselor, a guidance counselor, or a psychologist. Someone with a medical degree and experience with dealing with other people with addiction or substance disorders. What are some preemptive measures against social media addiction? According to the Elephant Journal, interaction through social media are less likely to enhance a human's well-being as compared to face-to-face interactions, which are more likely to do so. In other words, the most common preemptive measure, and the most effective measure is just checking in with your friends and family and just spending time with them, as it gives you a distraction from social media. Some other highly effective social media preemptive measures are to turn off your notifications. Therefore, you'll feel less tempted to be on your phone more often. Another preemptive measure is to limit yourself. For example, set a timer on your phone and see if, for example, if you are someone that is constantly on Instagram, set a 30-minute timer, which gives you more than enough time to check what you need to check on Instagram. And it also prevents you from overusing your apps much more. Getting a new hobby is a very effective measure because it distracts you from your social media accounts. Uh, a hobby such as reading, gardening, or sports are very effective because they keep you away from your phone or from other devices that you can use um, to access your social media. It also takes up a lot of your time and it's most common for people to get very into it and lose track of time, but in a positive sense. Deleting the apps you don't use is also very helpful because it keeps you from having an excuse to use your phone. Or, for example, if you had an app such as Pinterest on your phone, but you're never on it, it it keeps the option of using your phone to check on Pinterest away from you. In summary, today you have learned that social media addiction, in terms of its effects, its symptoms, and its preemptive measures against it. During this time of quarantine, I can understand that many of you have increased your use of the internet and therefore have spent much more time on social media to stay connected with your friends and families via the internet. However, I just want to remind you that as much as you use social media as a tool, it can also be overused and affect you negatively. Social media addiction is an easily contracted disease, and unless you responsibly use social media and in moderation, you as well can also be affected.